I count a lot.
You know,
Like, I've been fiddling with the number 18 lately.
welcome to the Gathering podcast.
No, Steve.
About the eclipse.
Steve,
hey,
stop.
I was going somewhere with this.
No. Just, no.
Welcome to the Gathering Greenhouse, a podcast to talk about the solar eclipse. Welcome to the Gathering Greenhouse, a podcast to help us grow together.
Can we talk about like eyewitness accounts? Because we're going to be talking about that this Sunday.
Eyewitness account.
Because I do not have one.
Did the light change inside of Kroger? Like, did that? Because in the Kroger that I go to, they have a lot of skylights. So
I don't go to a bougie Kroger.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Is a skylight bougie?
So my Kroger is
I feel
one.
like that's cheap. Like
I feel
you're
like
saving on
they're actually
electricity.
trying to save money.
They're trying to save electricity.
My Kroger is one that they're actually building a new one right now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they like go down the street
Yeah.
a little ways and build a new one. They're building a new. That's how old mine is. Yeah.
Sounds pretty bougie. You're getting a new Kroger.
Well, it
must
will
be
be
nice.
bougie. I hope. I hope it's bougie.
The second and third closest Krogers to me are like brand new and nice, but the
Yeah.
one that is 2 minutes from my house is
Is it
just
a dump?
Yeah, you're right.
and tiny.
It is.
Yeah, you know which one. It's bad.
It might be one of the worst ones.
I often drive to the other ones to just avoid it.
Yeah.
So,
What are the other ones?
like the one over by like Wilmington Pike, Target, all that.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a good one.
And then the one up in Riverside that's really new.
Oh, I've not been to that one.
It's really nice.
So so you really didn't look at the
So
eclipse?
I actually...
You're waiting to 2099? You just want to build anticipation.
I actually drove out of the path of totality.
Okay.
So-
On accident.
No, my house is out of the path of totality.
Okay.
So I left the path
Okay.
of totality and went to Kroger.
Word of the week was totality. It's actually a great word to say.
I'm sick of the word.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I heard it-
sick of the word.
I feel like I heard it like 150 times a day for the last 2 weeks.
I tried to shout totality as much as I could while
You know, we had one
totality
of these.
was going
we had
on.
one of these 7 years ago.
Well, yes, and it was not nearly as cool. It was like, I was like,
It was if you were in the path of totality.
well, yeah, of course.
It was
but
the
around,
exact
I'm saying
same.
around, I'm not traveling for that. And
that's your problem.
it backed up my theory and is not worth any type of drive.
I heard that one of these happens every 18 months somewhere in the world.
Right.
Really?
It's
So-
like totally.
Does it really?
I mean, I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
Right? I didn't verify this.
So
I just
Well,
heard
it
this.
happens on the moon a lot.
Let's just offend all people here. That
Everyone? Okay. Hey, I'm curious.
a total
Yeah.
eclipse is not a sign of the judgment of God.
Wait.
And it's not a sign of global warming.
We need explanation
Wait.
there. Break this down for us, because that makes no sense at all.
So-
Because clearly it's both of those things.
I'm really curious if you're one of those people that was claiming that, like, at the point of totality in Ohio, the rapture was going to occur.
Yeah, I know.
What do you say today?
Okay,
I'm just
for
kinda
real,
curious.
there were people who were saying this.
Oh, yeah.
You're saying that, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There was this whole thing about it's going to pass over certain cities with certain names like Nineveh and Jonah,
thought-
Texas, and that means that this is
Maybe
It's
we
the end.
maybe
So-
how
so
do you guys know it didn't happen?
My favorite is the one
we are left behind.
that says, like, I guess it was the one 7 years ago that passed over all the cities that are named Salem, which
Yep.
is peace. And this one passed over all the cities that are named Nineveh. And that right where they cross, like if you take exactly where the two cross, it's a town named Rapture. Dun, dun, dun.
And they were going to cross?
Well, that's not true.
Okay.
The actual dead center crossing of the two from 7 years ago and this one is like in a small lake somewhere in western Illinois or something.
I also just think
well, let's
it's,
name it Rapture.
it's very funny
Lake
to me
Rapture.
Right.
that we're just assuming that these eclipse experiences that are happening in the United States are indicative of what God's doing in the whole world.
Or that we are way more important than we think. You know, like
Of course I am, Steve. How dare you question my importance?
You can be sure, though, that if one of these eclipses ever has the path of totality go through Independence, Missouri, that is the end. Shout out to my friends in Utah.
What?
Mormons.
What's that? Yeah, what is that?
That's like where they were always like that was their.
Oh,
that was
where Joseph Smith
yeah.
he found something in a rock or something.
No, that was up in New York. That was where he
So
always
basically,
said that
he
was
went-
the place.
He kept moving, and then he would get kicked out for being
Yeah.
weird with women, and then he would get kicked out again.
Yeah, and they were trying to kill him.
Then he made his own state.
They did kill him.
They did get him.
They got him in Illinois. So
Then they moved to Missouri.
I think my favorite Mormon story. I mean, we don't want to be bashing the Mormons too much here, but my favorite Mormon story is in Salt. Have you guys ever been to Salt Lake?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay, so if
Couple
you're
times.
up in the mountains,
I have a great Salt Lake prank for you guys.
Okay. If you're
I'll
up in
tell
the
you later.
mountains and you're looking down at the city, right?
Yeah.
The city's all that, and then you got the Great Salt Lake, which from up in the mountains looks beautiful, right? So the story is, as the Mormons were moving westward, they came over the mountains and they looked down into this valley, and Brigham Young, who was their leader,
Yeah.
said, God has told me this is the place, because it looked like, oh my word, look at this, is perfect.
An oasis,
It's a
yeah.
valley, so it's protected.
Yeah.
There's this beautiful big body of water.
Yeah.
But if you've ever been
Yeah.
to the Great Salt Lake,
It's barren and it's
it smells
uninhabitable.
like death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I went to Salt Lake City on like I don't know, it's like some youth conference. And, you always go to like that.
Were you a Mormon?
No, I just so happened. I mean, it's a city too where people go to. For some reason, they had it there. But I was not
Was this
Mormon.
who was this with?
It was Christian Missionary Alliance. is
Okay.
what it
You've
was.
been so many different
Yeah.
denominations
Yeah.
over your life.
Yeah, I was Presbyterian for like a year.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was
should
actually
say
they served
Presbyterian.
donuts at their church, so it was as a kid it was
Are
a
we
wonderful church to go to.
Presbyterian?
It was a wonderful church. No, I'm just saying because
We're close.
of that. Are we? No, we're not. No.
In some ways.
Presbyterians are, I think, the weirdest.
This was not the point of my story, guys. You're derailing me.
All right. So you were with the CMAs.
Yeah, so we went there. Long story short,
Country Music
when you go to
Association.
the like Mormon place where the tabernacle and everything,
Yep.
well, like they ask for your like info, right? So
Oh, absolutely.
I gave them my friends.
me too.
I gave
Oh,
them
no,
my
I gave
friends.
them my own.
I gave them my friend's dad's info, and they kept calling him.
Oh yeah.
And they stopped at his house, and it was really funny.
When I
He got
went,
so
I gave
angry.
them my info.
Yeah.
And it led into a very long relationship I had with two young Mormon missionaries, because they came to my house.
Yeah.
And they had no idea who I was, and so we would sit down and talk, and I would just be like the I'm curious about spiritual things,
Yeah.
and I would just kind of ask them questions. They were always surprised.
If I was Mormon, I would not want to show up at your house.
They were always really
It's a bad
surprised that
day.
my questions were so intuitive. But I was like, take them out to eat. We had a good time. They-
What? You took them out to eat?
Oh yeah. I
Where
mean,
do you
we-
take Mormon?
What do Mormons eat?
Yeah, what do they eat?
food?
Like pizza? Where are you taking them? Pizza or
Just to a restaurant. They can order whatever they want.
what kind of restaurant though?
They eat little children. I took them to the little children restaurant.
What? Took a turn.
I don't know, why do you
Took a
guys
turn.
think Mormons don't eat?
No, I'm just curious.
They do have some rules. They do
Just
have, like,
curious.
I think they stay away from caffeine. Actually,
Yeah, there's like
What
no
about
coffee shops in a
humongous peanut butter and chocolate eggs.
there are coffee shops.
Speaking of that,
Ironically, I got my Utah coffee shop
oh really?
mug. Yeah, see?
Utah's awesome. I'm going
This
there.
place
I'm
beams.
going there this summer. I'm
They have
heading
really
to
fancy
Utah.
Swiss
So
parks or something like
Southern-
that.
not close to Salt Lake City.
Yeah, you're going on the national parks.
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
them.
Maybe
Arches?
and
Bryce?
Canyonlands. Bryce, I think Bryce is Bryce in Utah or is it in Arizona?
It's in.
Okay.
It's just right.
So
it's
yes.
very near the border. And
Okay,
then are you
yes.
going to Zion?
Yes, and Capitol Reef. I don't know if that's in Utah or not.
not sure.
It's somewhere around there.
Are you going to go to the Grand Canyon?
Yes, but we're not staying there. It's a drive through for us.
Okay, I got to tell you though.
Okay.
On the north,
I'm gonna cut this up
on the north rim of the
while
Grand
you're
Canyon,
talking.
which is probably where you're going to be, right?
I have no idea, but is that a good spot to go?
Oh, it's awesome.
Okay, yes, that's where I'm
Now, I've
going.
not been to the south rim, but there's this little motel. It's the closest place you can stay to the north rim.
Okay.
If you're not actually staying inside the park.
It's called the Bates Motel.
Seriously, it feels like it could be a place where serial killers would stay, but they have a great breakfast. So I'll give you all the deets.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Sounds great. We're gonna be in Sedona for a couple nights.
Okay, nice.
And
Sedona's
then
great, except
headed
there's
there.
one road through the whole thing, and
Is it
takes forever.
crowded?
It's always crowded.
Is it? We're hoping to avoid that by going a little bit early. Oh my goodness, this is really hard to cut here.
Marianne and the
Not
kids all
recommended.
went to the South Rim, and they stayed in an Airbnb pretty close to Sedona. So if you want info on that,
Okay.
I'll hook you up with that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
They said it was really nice. I didn't get to go. They didn't like me enough.
Well, that one's. This
You're
is
really- you're
extremely
really working
difficult.
hard here.
Extremely difficult to
Maybe
cut.
you should have gotten a real knife.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be a little bit softer here, but it clearly was not. So I'll give you the less peanut buttery piece. This is for John right
Wait,
here.
why are you giving me the less peanut
Because
butter
John is
piece?
special.
I don't know how to take.
Do you
that,
want
Steve.
more peanut butter piece?
I love peanut butter.
Okay, well I'll give you a more peanut butter piece.
Do you ever eat peanut butter off a spoon?
I have. It's not a thing I
I'm gonna
normally
tell
do.
you, just looking at it, I think the ratio of chocolate to peanut butter is off on this because look how thick
it's
that bottom is.
super thick.
Like I got like,
Super thick
I
chocolate.
was about this much
was struggling
chocolate
to
and
cut
the
it.
rest is
And-
peanut
and-
butter.
And what we have,
me to throw it?
do not throw it.
Don't throw it.
Don't
We got-
throw it.
How much
this
does equipment
this
cost?
is a piece I can throw.
Okay, throw that. So
can throw that
here's
piece.
what we've already determined this based on all the other Reese's products we've tried is that the higher the peanut butter to chocolate
Yes.
ratio is, the better the Reese's cup. This is not giving me hope. Look
No.
at all that. There's like a quarter inch of
But
chocolate.
look at the middle. I mean,
Yeah,
if you look
but
at the middle,
The middle
of this,
probably is good.
This is like all peanut butter. I'm
Yep.
so excited about
I
this.
probably should have cut the fatter half of the egg
Wanna try
down. Okay.
Yeah,
but
what were you
mine
thinking?
I'm saying mine, the peanut butter on mine
Wait, I'm
looks a
gonna try.
little.
I'm gonna try something.
It
here.
looks a little shiny and like greasy.
It's
Can
a
you see
different-
that?
The peanut butter's different. It's a different type of peanut butter.
Is it really?
This is a gimmick.
Do you ever dip Oreos
Shame
in
on you.
coffee?
No.
You should. I mean,
It
not
is-
with that cream you put in there, but
And this is all chocolate right here. Not even gonna.
Yeah, you're
not gonna
right.
Waste my time.
Very disappointing.
you know what?
Bigger
I
isn't
got no
always better.
complaints.
Oh, really? The peanut butter's clearly different. Peanut butter's clearly different. That's very disappointing. Way too much chocolate.
Way too much
Reese's. The best part about it
The
is that it's an
texture of
egg.
the peanut butter feels different, but
It's
I
like grainier.
Little crunchy.
I don't
That's not
notice a
good.
big difference in the taste.
That's not good.
You don't?
no.
I definitely do.
I'm not a huge.
I
The best thing is the peanut butter, and so
Yeah.
a bite is mostly chocolate. It's
Well,
kinda-
also one thing I
Number
love
to me.
Hey, what
is
are you
kind
gonna
of
do
like
with that?
I was gonna give it to my kids. I was gonna give it to my kids. They were like begging me for someone. I'm
Usually
like,
Matt
no,
gets
guys.
the leftovers.
Well, you get home and they say, "Can we have the rest of your egg, Dad?" You say, "No, David took it."
David ate it.
This is one of the rare podcasts that I actually don't want it.
What?
He doesn't want the rest. Because we.
I seriously question your
Matt
judgment.
ate the rest of those dog chips.
I know.
So-
That's what I'm saying. Some of the stuff
I
he eats.
wait a second. I like the dog chips too.
Those were so bad.
They were not.
That was
I
the worst
like
snack
them.
we've ever had on the podcast.
No, I think the worst one was the bacon flavored.
That's
the
what I'm talking about.
Like, okay, never mind then.
What are you talking
I
about?
thought we were talking about those weird protein chip things that I
Those
got.
are really bad too.
the
Yeah,
chicken
so-
and waffles,
Chicken and
protein.
waffles.
If
The
you're
bacon
wondering
ones.
what we're talking about right now, this is your first podcast. We eat a lot on this podcast, and you should go back and watch every single episode to see all of the different foods and snacks we've
They
tried.
won't disappoint entirely all the time.
This one, yeah. Sometimes surprisingly we like them.
There's
but
the
this one was
occasional good
disappointing.
podcast. Probably 1 out of 6.
Do not eat this by yourself. Maybe find 4 or 5
it
other
say that
friends.
on it?
There should be a warning. Do not eat
How many
this.
servings is one of those?
6.
6, yeah. Yeah, I will have to say, so you missed the podcast where I got a Reese's bunny for Cade, like chocolate bunny.
I didn't miss it. I wasn't on it.
You weren't on it. That's what I
right.
mean.
This is my
Way
favorite
better.
podcast.
This one is.
No,
Okay.
it's not. But it's
Well, it's
in
about
my,
to be.
It's in my
It's
list
not
that I
it's-
watch.
Mormon.
It's not over.
Reese eggs.
It's not over with yet. We still have
Grand
time.
Canyon.
We still have time.
No, not this episode. I mean, this,
Oh.
like of all the podcasts I watch or listen to.
Yeah.
this is in my list of
Oh, okay.
favorites. Yeah. So I generally watch it if I'm not on it.
I really like it.
Do you
two
watch
times.
it? Do you watch it at 2 times speed?
I do.
No, I used to do that to podcasts, and then I kind of stopped because it's like ones I'm just doing
Did
for
you notice how
educational
you
reasons.
slowed
I
down
did stop when I said
talking?
that. Well, because I was going to clarify that. Is it like ones I listen to for enjoyment? I don't like listening to them on 2 times speed because you kind of miss some of the stuff in there. But the ones like when I'm listening to your sermon, definitely 2 times speed.
Right, because that's not enjoyable.
Well, no,
joking.
it's the type of dialogue, right? So I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And if it's a book I'm listening to that's like informative, informational, usually it's it's not a story.
Yeah.
I can listen to that at like 2 to 3 times speed and retain all of it. But like a narrative driven thing, I have to listen to almost like maybe I go up to 1.5.
Yeah.
But I feel like you lose some of the I don't know. You just lose something.
Like
some of the
listening,
character
it's
of it.
like listening to a comedy podcast on two times
it ruins
speed.
the timing.
You totally lose the timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're listening to a book, like a story,
Yeah.
you know that after
Someone
that
listening to
author-
this on 2 times speed is like, should I slow it down?
that
No.
author has he's painfully crafted every single word.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you really are missing something if you listen to it too fast, I think.
Yeah. Well, shall we move on to some more serious things?
Yes,
I,
yes.
I wanted to say something as we go into discussion of sermon and some other stuff.
Stop.
Yeah.
Why don't you just say it?
Well, because it's not.
No.
Just go ahead and say it.
Because you were like, I want
to say it. Okay, yes, I will say it. Okay, I will say it. I think this is one of our best timed sermon series, maybe ever.
Wow. Ever?
I really.
I want to say that I agree.
I liked.
I'm going to say you're both suffering from recency bias.
Maybe. I'm thinking the one that we did that was it wasn't like a hot topics one, but it was like social issues that we were going through was greatly timed as well. I mean, I know it's not timed, but with the context of culture and what's going on.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Serial killer?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, How to Raise a Serial Killer?
Yeah, that one.
Best titled sermon series ever.
Well, I don't know. I was never a huge fan of the serial killer title, but I like the message within it. But this
I love
one,
the graphic. I put a knife in it.
I liked this one because it's coming right off of Easter. I thought it was like perfect coming off of Easter.
What if I told you? Have you ever heard those podcast commercials? What if I told you that we actually did a Life's Biggest Questions sermon series right after Easter?
I would believe you.
In the past.
I would believe you. But I don't know. This year, it felt like we had more momentum than that one going into it. So I feel like there was a lot more build up to Easter, but maybe that's also what you say, timing bias of like just where we are as a church.
Sure.
We've had, so many people who are within the past 2 months. We had like one of our biggest starting points we've had, definitely biggest starting points we have in a long time. And so there's a lot of new people here. So to be able to go over some of that stuff and coming off of Easter where you're getting a lot of friends and family invited, I thought it was great timing.
Well, good.
I know that we plan this stuff pretty far in advance. It's not like we change it quickly, but all right.
Will you say the same thing when we get to Romans?
No, I will not.
Do you want to hear something funny that I discovered?
What's that?
So this is going to be good for the podcast.
Not that I don't like Romans is a great book.
So I've been debating Romans for a couple of years, wanting to do it, and always feeling like if we do Romans, we've got to give it a big chunk of time because it's just
because you could need multiple weeks for a chapter.
What's wrong with just cherry picking your favorite verses?
Yeah. it's not a 6-week series, right? So for the past couple of years, I've been looking for a place where we're going to do it, and finally we said I'm going to do it this year. And so we're going to be doing Romans after this. So pretty exciting stuff. So, I set the whole schedule, and I've been tweaking it here and there. But, the early parts of the schedule pretty much kind of line themselves up. And I just discovered last week, I didn't realize I had done this, that we hit Romans 1:18 through the end of the chapter, which if you're familiar with that, you know what that's all about, the first Sunday in May. So just going to leave it there. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. If you know, then you know.
Okay.
It seems like you did it on purpose.
I might not even preach that one, but I did not do it on purpose.
Okay. That's coming up soon.
It is coming up
Very
soon.
All right. So
wait. Maybe it's June.
Everybody June.
Probably June.
Yeah. If it's going to be the big impact,
It's June. It's
gotta be
June. Yeah.
okay.
It's a great.
I'm running a little slow this morning.
Need it because you left your cup of coffee from last night. That's what it is. All right. So question here. You were in your sermon on Sunday. You're talking about, God being a loving God. And if you went through a lot of different scenarios, but like if God doesn't, do what we want, it feels like sometimes he's not a loving God, or he doesn't, or if something bad happens to someone, he feels like a loving God, or if God doesn't, if God allows bad things to happen in our world, then maybe he's not a loving God.
Right.
So the question I have here for you is, if God is loving, why doesn't he answer all my prayers?
Yes.
Mine specifically.
Yours specifically.
Because you have bad
Don't
prayers,
ask what
Steve.
my prayers are.
Okay. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Of course you are.
Steve
Before
hates
you
it when I
ask
do
a
that.
question, you actually have to ask if you can ask him a question. Can I ask you a question?
Can I ask you a question?
No.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay. Go for it.
So let's say Cade comes up to you and says, "Hey, Dad, I ate my whole dinner.
Yeah.
Can I have an Oreo for dessert?" What are you going to say?
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, boy. We're into question inception.
Yeah. I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Yeah, because that's not a big deal, right?
That's not a big deal.
What if Cade comes to you and says, "Dad, I ate all my dinner. Can I have a whole, do we call it, is it a bag or a box of Oreos?"
Carton?
Ooh, that's a good question.
This is a really,
Yeah.
this is a stumper.
I would probably say bag.
Tray?
Tray?
Tray would be
Dad,
more
okay, let's, how about this?
appropriate, but I don't think I've ever
never
heard
heard it say
anybody say tray.
Yeah, how about this? Dad,
Yeah.
can I eat all the Oreos in
Yeah.
the package?
I'm going to say no.
What? Steve, why don't you love your son?
See, we could go on this with ice cream because that's all he wants, and he's actually allergic to it. So
That's actually a better illustration.
It really
Yeah.
is, because it's like he's constantly like, especially because Harper wants some, and I can clearly say yes to her, but I know what's going to happen to Cade if he eats too much ice cream.
Do you ever give ice cream to Harper and not to Cade?
Yeah, I feel bad about it, but I don't feel like Harper should have to suffer all the time because of her brother. I just tell him to eat less.
All right. I feel like we've answered the question.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we've answered the question?
Not totally, because I think there's a lot of like nuances in there. But I think honestly, I think that's a great example because as a loving father, if I say yes, you can eat as much ice cream as you want, but I know he's going to get sick. He's not thinking about that. He's just thinking about I love ice cream.
If you're a loving father and you allow your kid to eat
And continually get sick.
you're not a loving father.
Right. And he has like headaches. Sometimes he's nauseous.
Yeah.
He'll get like his eyes will like puff up or his face will puff
No,
up.
I think it's great that I think the parenting analogy is is the best thing for this. It's like you don't realize this until you are a parent, but like what your kid wants for them is not often good for them, and it's not what's going to turn them into the person they need to become. If I let my son, if it's always yes and it's never no, and it's always, he's not going to grow up to be a man who that I want him to be, right? And it's the same with God. Like he wants to form you into who he wants you to be. And what we often request isn't what's best for us.
Right.
And if we got what we want, he wouldn't, sometimes it's those hard things like the hurt. Why are you letting this happen to me? Can you make this go away? But God has a plan to use that hurt for good somehow down the line. And you don't necessarily see it until you get there.
Yeah.
And that's
But
hard.
isn't hurt also like the way we perceive it too, to some extent?
Like the pain I feel is often my own perception.
Yeah, that's what I
for
mean.
sure.
Is it like sometimes pain is real pain, right? I mean, there's reality to it. There's a healing process that takes place, but sometimes pain is going through a difficult thing that's actually looking on the other side of it is actually really good for you.
Right. So I'll go preacher on you for a minute.
Yeah.
Right. There might not be pleasure in pain.
Yeah.
But there is always power in pain.
Yeah,
That's
for
good.
sure.
Clip that.
That's a good one.
I'll
That is a
look
good
at the
one.
camera and do it
I would
again.
say pain always profits.
Yeah.
Pan to one, tight end.
There's not always pleasure in pain, but there's always power in pain. He's not going to clip that.
No.
I'm not going to clip anything.
I'm going to clip it.
The
Okay.
AI is going to do it.
All right. So just
why doesn't he answer all my prayers?
Yeah. So real quick to finish that one up. So I think we've hit on the big reason is that he knows what is best for us better than we know what is best for us. And even more than a parent with a child, he has the foreknowledge and the understanding of how all consequences will and might turn out. So he has even more understanding than we do as parents. And we have a generally good understanding of what's good for our kids.
Right.
He knows more and he knows better. Secondarily, as we've kind of touched on already, when we go through suffering, it's good for us. I mean, and we understand this in almost every other aspect of life, right?
Yeah.
If I want to do well on a test, I'm going to have to suffer through the studying. If I want to lose weight, I'm going to have to suffer by eating less or by working out more. We build muscles by tearing muscles. So I mean, all of this, it makes sense to us until we get to this place where there's something that we really, really want really, really bad. And we're absolutely convinced that it's what's best for us.
Yeah. Is this a kind of question you think that a younger in their faith Christian might have? Or do you think this is the question that someone who is just looking at Christianity and saying this doesn't make sense? Or
I think everybody does. I have this question.
Yeah.
I mean, there are absolutely times in my life where I'm like, all right, God, this doesn't make sense. Can't you just give me this little thing, right? And it's like, and it feels like, and that's when you have to be able to say, you know what I know is different than what I feel. And I have to be willing to say, I'm going to let what I know about God rule me rather than what I feel about myself. I think that's really key. So I think everybody struggles with it.
I think part of that is we all, I think this is a very human characteristic and trait, is we all, and it's pride probably, but we all believe that we're the ones that don't deserve to suffer at all. And so, whenever we come into suffering or a trial or a challenge, it is so easy for us as humans to be like, God, why are you letting this happen to me? It's the to me part, I think, that makes it really hard for us to get through that, because we don't believe that we actually should be the ones that have to suffer. So it's easy to look at other people and be like, oh, God's going to get you through it. God's going to pull you through it. And you can say that as a mature Christian, and you're right. But as soon as you're the one in the hard spot, it's very hard to tell that to yourself.
Right.
So I think it's very natural out of that to go, why are you letting this happen to me? And then that's where you have to overrule your heart with your mind and say, but I know God has good plans for me, and I know He's going to carry me through this. Right.
Now, in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about the question, why do bad things happen to good people, which is similar topic.
Yeah.
And we may, in that sermon, touch on the story of Lazarus, which is really helpful there. But if we don't, it's really good for us to remember that Jesus wept. Right? Jesus did not weep because He was upset about what had happened to Lazarus. He did not weep because He didn't know what was going to happen next. He wept because He understood the pain that Mary and Martha were feeling. Yeah. So He was there with them. He was empathetic towards them. He felt their pain. He was with them in their pain, even though He knew what He was about to do. And I think that's powerful to remember, that even when God says no to us, He's still there with us in the pain of having to live through that no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is God's no always on purpose? Or not, is God's non-answer to, not necessarily no, but God's non-answer to prayer something that we would say, hey, He did that on purpose? Or would you say sometimes just things happen? How might you answer that question?
I don't think anything ever happens outside the purposes of God.
Yeah.
So there's the simple formulation that people use sometimes when they talk about prayer, that God in prayer, He either says yes, no, or not yet, right? That may be oversimplified. I don't want to go into this because we probably don't have time to unpack it.
Right.
But I would make an argument that God's answer to prayer is always yes. But that's largely because we know that the Spirit changes our prayers for us. And so God always says yes to what is best for us, even when we may not be praying that. So like I may pray, God, help me win the lottery. And the Spirit changes my prayer to, God, give David cancer so that he can learn something about himself. And God says yes to that.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't feel like a yes, but it's still a yes to what's best for me. And I don't have cancer, I don't think.
Well, that's like prayer is, I would say, almost equally as formative for us as it is about like our request to God, right?
Correct.
It changes us because when you are going to the Lord in prayer, you're actually saying, in a form, you're submitting, saying, I'm submitting to what you want. And there's an undertone of all of our prayers, which ought to be at least, this is what I want, but God, I want what you want even more. And so even if what I'm asking isn't what you want, help me to want what you want.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking about this, I've thought about this for a long time, but the happiest people I've ever known are the most devout Christians. They spend the most time in prayer. And you're like, why are you just always joyful and happy? And it's because they have chosen to align themselves fully with the mission and the purpose of God. And if you're in line with God, you're going to like win. You're going to get everything you want all the time, because you're wanting what he wants. That doesn't mean you don't suffer and there's not hardship and pain, but you're choosing to find victory in his victories rather than what you thought the victory was going to be. And of course, you're going to be happier.
And some things that you pray for at one point in your life may not end up being the things you thought were so important later in life when you're when you have maybe more life experiences or if you've built up more faith, whatever it may be. That's changed over time.
So said the great prophet Garth Brooks. Right? You guys don't
Friends
know.
in low places.
No. What's the next question?
Okay, next question. I don't know where. That's the only Garth Brooks song I can remember. So.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I mean, I probably, if you said some others, I would know it, but it's just the first one that popped into my head. So.
Okay.
Do you have friends in low places?
Yeah, I work at a church.
Name them.
Question 2 here is, how is God's love for us different than our love for other people? I feel like this one is like a bit obvious, but also kind of complex in the same
All right, well,
sense.
go for it then.
Okay, so it's different in the way that it's unconditional for everyone. Okay, my unconditional love, selfishly enough, is reserved for my closest of family members,
And probably isn't always.
and well, my kids.
No, I mean, you're human.
My kids, I would say, my kids are still young, so they have plenty more things to make me angry about in life. But as of from now till how long?
I've heard you talk about your kids.
What?
I'm going to make Katie.
They're angels. They do nothing wrong, and they will always love me forever. They'll never.
So I don't
Just had a
know
Michael
that.
Scott moment.
Yes.
I don't know that humans are in their own power are capable of unconditional love in the same
Because we're selfish.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. I don't think that humans are capable of love that isn't touched by selfishness without the power of the Holy
absolutely.
Spirit, whereas
Yeah.
God completely selflessly showed his love to us.
Yeah.
That to me, I don't think we can understand what that was because it is. We say I have unconditional love. Like I have unconditional love for my wife. But if my wife cheated on me, I don't know if I could still say that. Well, that's not conditional, right? The conditions changed, the love changed, right? And so I think there's this. It's really hard in human relationships to have that understanding and fully grasp what it means that our God unconditionally showed us his love. I just don't think we can fully grasp it.
But take that down into the minutia of family life, right? Like the time when your wife asks you to help with something and you internally grumble about it, right? Or your kids
Internally grumble.
if your kids want you to go do something with them and you internally are like, oh, this is so dumb, right? In those moments, what we betray about ourselves is that our love is actually at least a little bit transactional.
Yeah.
And
we
don't like that.
And negotiable too.
Yeah.
Because when your kids ask you to do something you don't want to do, sometimes you're like, hey, let's do this instead. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
So if you're doing that for their benefit, that's love.
No, right.
If you're doing it for your benefit, then
No, I need it. That's something as a parent, because kids are vulnerable and they're also very trusting of parents and adults in general. So it's easier to take advantage of that. Not saying that.
Yeah.
I do, but I'm just saying that, when you have a sense of authority, it's easier to get someone to do what you want to do when it's maybe not necessarily best in their interest.
Right.
And as a parent, we should be looking out for the best interests of our kids over ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hard to do all the time.
Well, and taking that another step, right? One of the reasons as parents, often when we choose not to do what's best for our kid and just give in to them is because we don't want to deal with the consequences of a scrking kid towards
Tablets.
us, which is so selfish.
Is a great example of this.
Like, I don't want to hear.
Help me. I hear tablets. I think pills.
like a iPad or something.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, the best interest of the kid is to get them out and playing or doing something or just connected from that. But it's a timeout for the parents.
The reason parents often don't say no to the kid is because they don't want to deal with a crying kid.
Exactly.
It is not about
that's what
the
I mean.
kid. It's about you.
It's about you.
Pause just for a second for just a quick parents, we've said this before. Get your kids off the screens. If you raise your kids with screens, then your kids are going to listen to somebody else other than you. Be a parent. Back to our conversation.
And
Screen
the
time
fact
equals
that
scream time.
One of my favorite things that you said about parenting was, would you let your kid go to an unsavory type of place? Would you you're doing that
I
on
think
the
he
internet?
said a strip club.
Yeah, yeah.
Did I?
Yeah, I mean, that's a harsh reality of it, because it is absolutely true. It is not that hard on Facebook or any other platform to see stuff that you don't want to see. And it's not even anything, you don't even have to go out that hard out of your way to see it. That's the truth in it.
It's one of the things that is crazy about what's changed about the internet from when I was a kid to what kids today are dealing with. When I was a kid, you had to proactively go find something. Today, it's
you
delivered.
had to jump through a bunch of hoops to get there. Now it's like a click away, and sometimes even an accidental click away.
It's just you're on your Facebook feed and there's an ad, or you're on, and it's
very true.
It is preloaded for these kids, and it scares me a little bit.
Sickening, really.
So let's circle this back to God's love for a second, because I think this is
tangent.
This is, I think, maybe the coolest part of this conversation.
Yeah.
So as parents, we are sometimes inclined to give in to our kids for our own comfort, right? We might put them on the screens longer than they should be, just to give ourselves a break, because we need that.
Or give them a phone because we want them to be able to contact them, whatever it is.
Give them whatever it is that they're asking for that we think maybe isn't actually best for them, but it's easier for us. We do that sometimes because our love for our kids is actually flawed, because the loving thing to do would be to continue to suffer so that they could have what's best for them. So this is God's love for us. God doesn't give in.
Yeah.
So no matter how much we scream, no matter how much we yell, no matter how much we beg, if it's not good for us,
this is good.
He doesn't give it to us.
Yeah.
That's what real love is.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's where His love is different than ours.
I like that. That's a really good way to look at it.
Not fun, but
no, but those are the things that you look back and you stayed on the correct path, and you get to reap the benefits of it later as understanding that God's path is the right path for our lives. And it absolutely pays dividends in the end. You got to stick with it. If you choose the easy route, you won't get the benefits of it. You will constantly stay in that infancy of your faith, and you won't reap the rewards of a content life if you always take the easy path.
Yep.
Very true.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we go on to the next question?
I think we should.
Which is looking to the future here a little bit. We're going to be talking about what's coming this Sunday. What's next?
So question number 2 is, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, do you enjoy these types of sermons? Because it's a little bit more topical than some of the other ones that we do. I know we do a nice mixture here, but this one is like a specific.
So it's a yes and a no.
Yeah.
So like in most of these sermons, the first half of the sermon, I'm spending kind of unpacking the question, and then I'm taking the second half and I'm really zeroing in on one passage of scripture. I enjoy that part of it. Yeah. But if I'm going to
building the case for this,
the zeroing in on one verse, like this.
Yeah.
This
but do you feel it like you're building a case for people of why you should listen to what I'm saying, or why the Bible is correct on this, or disarming people for their because everyone, our audience between services, our audience within the service is very different. We have people who are coming to our church who really know very little about the Bible, but we also have people who are retired pastors, here. So
it's almost like in this series, I'm preaching 2 different sermons each week. So the first half is really designed for that person who's got these legitimate questions and they're not sure what to do with it. And I'm just trying to whet their appetite and trying to say, hey, look, there are good answers to your questions. Let me give you a taste of that, but you're going to have to do the effort on your own, right? And then the second half is I'm really, for the people who are believers already, who they trust the Bible, they believe the Bible, I'm taking them there, and I want to give them something that's, hey, this is what the Bible says about this topic. Like my sermon, the first half of my sermon this last week was about how do we know if God is loving or not?
Yeah.
But the second half was really about this is what the love of God means.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it'll be similar this week too. So this week's question is the Bible really trustworthy, or how can I trust the Bible, or something like that, right? And so the first half, we're going to answer that question a little bit, talk about, why it's reasonable to believe that the Bible is the Word of God. And then the second half, we're going to talk about what does it actually look like to trust the Bible.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to argue that most Christians don't actually trust the Bible.
No, and that was my next question is why. So why is it even important to trust the Bible?
Yeah, because it should be our source of authority for, all matters of life. And to actually trust the Bible means to put your life in the Bible's hands. And so that not just the easy stuff, but the hard stuff too.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give too much of it away, but that's what we're going this week.
I like that. All right. Well, I think we've answered all the questions. We've gone over everything that we need to. So thanks for joining us here on The Greenhouse. And we'll see you here next week.
Bye.
Bye.